And welcome in, everyone, to a very special Football 24/7 with the John McMullen. It's a post-game edition after the Eagles get a big victory over the Saints down at the Link. Jalen Hurts gets the dub, and he did so, Johnny Mac, by extending a lot of plays today on offense. Initial thoughts from you, my friend.
Nice job by you. That's my initial thought, Crafty. But, Jalen Hurts gave everything that Doug Peterson spoke of kind of last week, using the word spark, most notably juice, whatever you want to call it. He put energy into this offense, energy into this team. And all of a sudden, the moribund Philadelphia Eagles, everyone left them for dead. They beat the best team in the NFC. The Saints came in 10-2, number one seed, inside track to have the week off in the postseason, and they beat them. And I don't think a lot of people expected that. I know I didn't. I thought it would be closer than most people thought, but I didn't think the Eagles had it in them. And the only reason they did is Jalen Hurts. And I just got done with the post-game press conferences, and I was a little surprised at how Doug Peterson kind of downplayed it and downplayed his impact on the team. And I think he's again trying to save the feelings of Carson Wentz. And, I looked to another team, and Mike Zimmer, whose kicker missed 4 kicks today, and he said, you know what? At this time of the season, feelings don't matter. And feelings don't matter. And now we talk about the New York Giants losing. Wasn't all roses for the Eagles because the Washington football team did win. But all of a sudden, there's a little bit of life to this team, Krause, and it's all because of number 2, Jalen Hurts, in his first NFL start. And get this, Joe, the Saints had not allowed a 100-yard rusher in 55 games, and they allowed 2 tonight, Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders. With Miles, it was the one run, and the one run, while we all know how explosive Miles Sanders is, he admitted himself, the presence of Jalen Hurts opened that. So it was all Jalen Hurts. 106 yards on the ground, 167 through the air. Pretty impressive.
Johnny Mac, how does it work? Because the narrative all season up to this point has been the number of combinations of players that have started on the offensive line. And then you come out against the number 1 defense in the National Football League, and you put up those kind of numbers in the game. Was the offensive line playing much better, or was it Jalen's ability to scramble better? What was it today?
I think it was a little bit of what we talked about. When you talk about offensive line play, you're not expected to block in this league for 4.5 seconds. So when you look at some of those Carson Wentz sacks, and really, if you want to take it away from even that, because people, that's such a lightning rod. If you look at any other quarterback who extends plays around this league, probably the best example would be Deshaun Watson in Houston, because he takes a ton of sacks every single season. And his offensive line takes the brunt of it, no matter who they bring in, no matter what they do, because that's the type of quarterback he is. He refuses to give up on plays. He's always trying to do something. In a lot of ways, the Eagles' offensive line this season has had that kind of impact. Nobody's taken more 4-second sacks than Carson Wentz in the NFL. Well, you're not supposed to be back there for 4 seconds. So you can extend plays, and you can do it in the fashion which can help the offensive line. Jalen Hurts did that today, and it was a good thing. And all of a sudden, you mentioned how many groups. Well, this was the 12th different group in 13 games. And this group didn't look too bad. They weren't great, but when you look at who they were facing, and Cam Jordan, in those guys, which is one of the best defensive fronts in football from Saints, you expected a bloodletting. Those guys held their own, and a lot of that, just like with Miles Sanders, had to do with the quarterback.
Yeah, for a moment there, when the first half was coming to a close, I thought perhaps that the controversy for the upcoming week was going to be whether or not we needed to bring in another kicker, because Jake Elliott missed that opportunity, that field goal at the end of the half to put him up 20-0 instead of 17-0. And then it changed a little bit, Johnny, coming into the start of the third quarter. I think the Eagles, who got the ball, went 3 and out, and that's where it started to shift and started to change. Break that down for me a little bit in that third quarter.
Well, a lot of it had to do with attrition in the secondary. I mean, the Eagles lost 75% of the starting secondary. So first it was Avonte Maddox, and then it was bang, bang, back-to-back, Darius Slade, Rodney McLeod. And I'm a little concerned with Rodney McLeod because it was a non-contact knee injury, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. But they were down to nothing. They were down to fumes. And remember, they came in with only 3 real corners. They just had to bring up a corner from the practice squad, sign a guy that nobody knew, basically, on the 53-man roster. So they were really up against it to the point they had to move Jalen Mills from safety back to corner and put in guys like Marcus Epps and Kayvon Wallace to finish the game. And I got to be honest with you, Krause, if Drew Brees is out there, they'd probably lose this game. But Taysom Hill is really, really, and I mean really limited as a passer in this league. And even he ended up, a lot of garbage time yardage, but near 300 yards. And that's a concern. But, you have Kayvon Seymour, nothing against Kayvon Seymour, but again, he's just joined this team. He's never played it, hasn't played in NFL games since 2017. So those were the kind of guys they had out there. And that's going to be maybe the thing to watch this week as you start to shift towards Arizona. Can you at least get Avonte Maddox back? Can you at least get Darius Slade back? Because the Eagles have so many injuries in the defense backfield now.
NFL insider for Jacob Media Sports, John McMullen, covering the Birds for Sports Illustrated, for Philly Voice. And, of course, you'll hear him with Jody Mack on WIP. You'll hear him with Rich Q on AM 1490 Sports Betting Radio. And then you'll hear him Monday through Friday on The Fix with Ryan Rothstein. So busy week in front of you. I guess, Johnny Mack, before we finish up this game, I guess the conversation has already started. Is Jalen starting next week or for the rest of the season? Has that been decided as of this conversation?
Well, I can't imagine he will not start against Arizona, but Doug Peterson did not admit that he's the starter next week. He said he's going to enjoy the win. I imagine by Monday's post-day presser, he will acquiesce and admit that Jalen Hurts is going to be the starter. I certainly think he's going to be the starter for the rest of the season, barring injury, of course. And even before the game, we talked about, the Eagles kind of looked at this as a reset for Carson Wentz, and then they'll try the reclamation project in the off season. But now the problem for the Eagles is that this continues. And, this is one game, one start, as impressive as it was. It was against the top-ranked defense in the NFL coming in. Well, the problem generally with young players in this league is consistency from week to week. But this is an opportunity for Jalen Hurts. And if he finishes out this season like he started this run, well, the Eagles got a quarterback controversy in their hands. There's no question about it.
John, did Doug use a new playbook for Jalen Hurts today? I mean, up until today, really the only look that everybody has had from Jalen is down around the goal line or a very limited selection of opportunity or plays. Was it completely different today?
No, I think it was simplified. It was scaled back, and we thought that in the past when they've made changes, whether it was Carson Wentz and Nick Foles or whether it was Carson Wentz with the practice squad players, so to speak, in December of last season. The Eagles seem to have success when they scale back the playbook, to be honest. And I think if you look at their first drive, Krause, their first drive, which they didn't even score, they tried a 4th and 2 at about the New Orleans 34, 35, somewhere in there. And Miles Sanders got stuck by Malcolm Jenkins for a 3-yard loss. But I think it was about a 13, 14 play drive. And the longest play on that drive was 9 yards. And they were just churning things. But you know what they were doing? They were moving the chains. And that's what the Eagles weren't able to do. So you're 3 and out, and your offense looks terrible, but you're making, even if it's 3 yards, 5 yards, 2 yards, 9 yards, that's the kind of drive that was. And they just moved the chains. They converted a 4th down early in the drive. They tried to convert a 4th down when they got stopped. They just kept it moving. And everything looks better when you're on the field and you're piling up yardage. And that's kind of what happens. But no, I mean, this is his offense, and this is the fallacy of people saying, oh, Doug waited now to change it. He didn't change anything. This is the Eagles' offense. Jalen Hurts went out there and performed. Carson Wentz has not performed. That's the difference.
John, let me ask you to comment on that drive that they put together after the strip sack by Sweat on the 4th down, which resulted in a turnover. The Eagles took the football and put a nice drive together, which ultimately resulted in a touchdown. Talk about that drive.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the big plays in the game by Josh Sweat. I thought, the defensive line as a whole, and that's always the strength of this defense, the strength of this team. Javon Hargrave is coming up big later in the season as well. He had 2 sacks. Sweat had 2 sacks. But if you remember, that's when the Saints were coming back, and it was 17-14. And you had all those injuries in the secondary, and you said, uh-oh. And here came the Saints, and they were, I think, 4th and 2 at about the Eagles' 42 or something, somewhere around that area of the field. And Josh Sweat just comes around the end, and Taysom Hill didn't have anything, and that's sort of what he is. He holds on to the football a little bit too long at times. It doesn't see things at times. And he made the big play. And then bang, it was Jalen Hurts right out of the gate for 9 yards. And then he hit Greg Ward wide open over the middle, and they were off to the races. I think 3 plays it took them to get down to the Saints' 10-yard line. And then the game was essentially over. Miles Sanders goes in from a yard out eventually. It's a 24-14 game. And again, you don't have Drew Brees, you have Taysom Hill. And there were a little shaky moments because you had the onside kick that Jalen Mills had. He was at the bottom of the scrum. He came up with it. So there were a little heart-stopping moments. But, yeah, that was a big drive. And it just shows you Jalen Hurts. The one thing everyone says about this kid, Krause, he's a natural leader. The stage isn't too big for him. That makes sense because he played at Alabama. He played at Oklahoma in college. So a lot of times their big games are bigger than big NFL games. That's how big they are. So he's not scared of it. And obviously there's no fans anyway. So he's very calm. He's very cool. He's very collected at all times. And that kind of showed this afternoon.
Last thing from Football 24/7 insider John McMullen. John McMullen's game ball for the victory today. John, who gets the game ball, sir?
Well, that's the easiest A since the movie. It's Jalen Hurts. I mean, you can't go any other direction. Often the quarterback gets too much credit when you win and too much blame when you lose. But we've seen this team for 12 games coming into this one, and you saw how dead this offense was, and everything picked up. And you can go back to the second half in Green Bay, same thing. And not only that, the special teams and the defense, sort of everything gets a little bit of juice because that weakness on your team is all of a sudden turning into a strength, at least for 60 minutes of football. He changed the whole direction of this team. And Doug Peterson trying to soft pedal it, trying to go Hillary Clinton on us and say it takes a village. It took Jalen Hurts tonight, and Jalen Hurts delivered.
Football 24/7 with John McMullen. You'll hear him all week. It'll be a busy week for Johnny Mac. Appreciate it, Johnny Mac. Thank you, man.
All right. Thank you, Krause.
Okay, Johnny Mac. Thank you, brother.
All right.